Welcome to Fast and Hard. Your host, Coach Matt Tyler and Will Prichard.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. The 12th episode of Fast and Hard. Will, that's incredible, man. We got a dozen under our belt. How about that?
That's absolutely wonderful, and I mean, we've got a couple more left before the semester ends.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, man. It's been a great run. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go with Michael Melnik this week, and we will either be talking about recognition or fun. We're not 100% sure which one he wants to cover, so when we connect with him, we will bring him to you. Regardless, we know it'll be fun and exciting. But I do have a special treat for you today. Rather than go outside the box and grab a coach or an alumni or anything else, I'm going to put Will Prichard, our production manager and soundbite guy and my co-host, on the spot. I'm gonna interview him. We've had a recent accomplishment this weekend, and he just brought it to my attention how much fun he had with it, and I'll let him explain it to you when we get into it. But look forward to that. It's going to be fun, Will.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax. We'll get Melnik on the air here soon, and then we'll get right into Will the Thrill. Take care. We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. This segment's brought to you by Towson alum Chris Russ, your real estate specialist. You can find Chris at chrisruss.com or call him at 410-908-7723. Chris specializes and takes great pride in helping others relocate to new towns, as he once did over a dozen times while pursuing his dream to play Major League Baseball with the Texas Rangers. With many buyers flooding the area due to the great schools, strong job economy, and a robust defense industry, Chris has teamed up with lenders that specialize in VA loans and a home inspector that served our military proudly. Whether you are looking to commute to Howard County, Fort Meade, Baltimore, Bethesda, or Washington, D.C., Chris is familiar with the communities and the commuter locations that will serve you best. That's Chris Russ at chrisruss.com, 410-908-7723. Another proud TU alum. That's Chris Russ at chrisruss.com, your real estate specialist. Ladies and gentlemen, as promised, we have Michael Melnik with us now, and today's topic is going to be recognition. A key energy source. I know that everybody likes a pat on the back. Everybody likes to be recognized for a job well done. Michael, take us down this rabbit hole. Tell us a little bit about recognition and how you deem it to be one of the key energy sources for success.
Well, I'm happy to do that. I want to take a slight sidebar here, just because we're talking about recognition. I'm not sure with your humble nature that anybody that's listening right now would know that you're going to be inducted into the Decatur Athletic Hall of Fame. So how fun it's been for me to watch your athletic endeavors from the very beginning, and how cool is it now that it's being recognized in front of the community. So congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, that young man has been there from start until finish. He was very instrumental, he and his family instrumental in providing transportation to and from Miami a couple times, as well as financial support. Another story for another day.
Absolutely. Well, just very happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. It means a lot coming from you, certainly.
Yeah. Well, so to kind of try to nail the whole recognition thing, it's a fairly simple concept in my mind because it's so obvious in how we see the benefits of it. And really, it's me looking at anything that I would either want somebody to do or that they're already doing and I want them to continue to do it or do it more, is to just recognize the heck out of it. And that can mean as simple as a pat on the back and a thanks or a way to go. Because in the world that I'm in, so if I'm working in a company, I ask them what they do to recognize their employees. And they'll say, well, if they've gone, a year without an injury, if they if a department makes it a certain amount of time, if there's a certain amount of productivity. And I said, well, that's all good and fine. I said, but you do know that you have got a whole bunch of employees that are going to do that whether they're recognized or not, right? So those people are your day-to-day, absolutely doing what is necessary, what is the best for the organization. And on a daily basis, they're not really getting anything. And they're then getting to the time when it is to recognize everybody. And they're sitting there going, it just feels kind of like smoke, because I would do this with or without. And rather than having, giving me a trophy or giving me a benefit, how about just on a regular basis, I appreciate who you are and what you're doing for this organization. It is not unusual that what we recognize are the extremes. We recognize those that are not pulling their weight, or that are working unsafely, or that are fouling up, and we recognize them by calling them out. Or on the opposite side, if you're doing something extreme, on the positive side, we will call you out. But what we forget to do is that you got the middle of that bell curve that's carrying the majority of the weight. And those are the people who just get up every morning and go, I'm going to do my job in whatever capacity they're in. And for those folks, the majority of those people, they're not looking for money. They're not looking for a trophy. They're going, tell me you noticed. Tell me that you noticed that I am doing my job. And when we do it that way, the odds of it being heartfelt are significantly greater, because on the two extremes, if it's very negative, then it's like, well, the only reason you're recognizing me is because I'm costing you something. That's the only way I got onto your radar. On the other side, if I'm doing an amazing job, then what you're saying is the only reason you are recognizing me because I did something extraordinary, or I got lucky and I'm getting recognized. But there's this whole group in the middle that feels then relatively invisible. So on any given day, what I tell organizations, for whatever it is you're wanting people to do, what are those behaviors? And then find some simple, consistent, kind of methodical way that allows it to feel heartfelt. Because if I'm celebrating at the end of a year or at the end of a season, that often involves, again, taking out a checkbook and writing a check and doing, these bigger things. That's not sustainable. You can't do that every day to thank someone. But now if you think about the people that are in your life that you really care about, if you talk to them several times in the week, do you let them know each time you talk to them, so good to talk to you? That's it. And that is so sustainable and so repeatable. We don't sit there and go, oh, I know I haven't told you this for a year, but it's really nice to talk to you, right?
Yeah.
We find out the ways because we want them to want to talk to us. We want them to engage with us. And so we find simple, consistent ways. And I think too many times we go about our business and we don't see those things. We don't see them, so we don't call them out. And then we run the risk of our best people starting to drop the ball because they're only seeing people at the extremes getting recognized, either for being phenomenal or for underperforming in some way.
And I hate to tell you, but I would imagine that athletics probably falls into that category. I'm taken right to the NHL, where at the end of the game, it's the 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star guy, and and MVP and the not so MVP and the GOAT and then the real GOAT, and and all along the way there are those guys that just show up every day,
right,
their thing and do their job, and they don't get the trophy, they don't get the recognition, and they didn't have the winning 2-run double, but they did dive in 2 in the first inning, that
That's
people
right.
about. And
That's right.
yeah, and I think we do a relatively good job of trying to keep it positive around here, but we can always do better. And you mentioned it in relationships, and I think that's a key one. If you do it in relationships, if you even as much as, hey, have a nice day, recognize people, talk to people. In today's fast-paced world, Michael, we take this for granted, or we don't even mention it as we go about our day.
Right.
Most of the time. You know,
Yeah, and we do. We miss opportunities. The story I like to tell is back in the days when I officed in an office building, I was up on the seventh floor. And if I was not having a good day, I would go down to the first floor. I would go down to the front door. And it was, I've had like, I don't know, hundreds of offices in there. And I would stand at the front door and I would just hold the door open for people when they were coming to work. I would just stand there and hold the door open. They'd walk in and they'd make eye contact and they'd say thank you and hey, appreciate that. Have a nice day. And at some point, typically some older individual would kind of be waddling in and look at me and go, "You are a very nice young man." And I would go, "You know what? I'm ready to go back to work now." That's all I needed was just a little bit of Michael Matters, and for most of us, the only reason we're looking for the big stuff is because we're not getting the little stuff on a consistent basis. And so we need something that's going to pop. But if you look at, for your baseball example, was it Cal Ripken that had the most games played, right? Yeah. It's not the glamorous one, but if you were actually going to call somebody a most valuable player, showing up every day, consistently getting hits, consistently, not the home run leader, not the stealing leader, not the glamorous stuff, but probably the most valuable player.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, he broke a record that was held by Lou Gehrig, and God knows that it stood for 50 years. And special character, I mean, he did. He just showed up every day, and I think he was rewarded, obviously, with a couple MVPs and things like that. But those are the guys that are in that bell curve that you speak about. That if they got that recognition, that pat on the back, you'd no telling what it would do for them and how successful it would make them feel. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. The jury's still out, in my opinion, because when you and I played when we were kids, if you won the league you played in, you got a trophy. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, everybody has a participation trophy. Thoughts on that? What's your thinking?
Well, it depends on if the goal is participation, then a participation trophy is a good idea. And then you go, oh my gosh, we met our goal. If the goal is more character driven, and what I'm trying to do is go, you have to learn to lose and you have to learn not to get a trophy, then that probably does not achieve that goal. So the recognition is really based on what do you want to see more of. And I think the argument people are having is we're seeing more whining if they don't get a trophy. That's probably not the behavior you were going after. So I think that's why, let's talk about in the dugout. Let's say there's a player who's not starting or barely gets in the lineup, but a player comes back to the dugout that is a starter that just struck out and bases were loaded and they're up. And this person goes over and spends the next 30 seconds talking to this person about, you know what, that happens. And if you see that happen, you want to go and grab that person and go, you know what? That was as valuable as anything else that happened out on that field today, because I saw that guy's demeanor change. Guess what? That guy is going to go look for somebody else that now needs that from him or her or whatever, because of just somebody saw it, somebody called it out, somebody said that was awesome. No trophy, no money, no other fame other than somebody appreciated it, noticed it and appreciated it. And I tell folks, whatever world you're in the workplace, in the sporting world, whatever, make an effort to go. There are probably going to be, if I don't pay attention, there are going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 things that are going to happen today that are worthy of me recognizing in my players, in my workers, in my friends. I want to make a point to get to the end of the day and go, I called out 2 people, 3 people, 4 people for something that they did that very easily could have gone unnoticed, but by being noticed might be secured and become a more consistent behavior.
Call that culture, don't you, Michael? Are we talking about,
I mean, yes, all of this stuff is culture building.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of things where it goes someplace different. When somebody does something like that, when you walk up to somebody and you say, I really appreciate the effort you put out, or I really appreciate what you did, that goes someplace that is about them as a person, not as a hitter, not as a fielder, not as a, but as a person, that somebody appreciated those things. Because it's usually the things that we do as a person, particularly when we're in sports, that are oftentimes unnoticed. They're noticing, did I hit or strike out? Did I steal the base? It's not personal.
I think that's we should all heed this advice today, that recognition doesn't have to be in the form of a trophy, doesn't have to be a monetary form, and I think you're right. A job well done, or thanks for your effort, goes a long way in today's world, especially, at least from my perspective. If you hear somebody tell you something, it is so much better than receiving it in text form.
Right.
It just really is. And that's obviously the old school in me. But hey, I appreciate you, man. Great job today. Thanks for giving me all you have. That's what we try to do around here. We do. Even in the worst of the worst games, there's some negativity, but we're always going to try and end it on a positive note. And we're always going to try and recognize something successful that happened that day, or something inspirational that happened that day.
Yeah.
And go from there, because, well, number of things, life's way too short, to be constantly harping on the back end of that bell curve. And I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. So,
Well, and if you think about the people that you like to be with, they are the people, because none of us are flawless, none of us are perfect, and a far stretch from it, but we like being with the people who appreciate the good things about us, and they're verbal about it, and they are, it's the handshake and the hug and the pat on the back and the so good to be with you, and it doesn't happen often enough, I think, in most people's lives.
absolutely. I'm going to close with one form of recognition that I owe my family. So, ladies and gentlemen, one time I drove up to pick up Michael to go out when we were in high school. I saw him and his father playing basketball in the driveway. Hot, sweaty, July day, both of them, pair of shorts on. That's it. We used to play topless back then. It was different back then in those days. So they're going at it one-on-one in the driveway. Hey, Tyner, you want to play? No, man, I'm just going to watch. Afterwards, I saw them give each other a form of recognition. It was the first time I'd ever seen a father-son man hug, all sweaty-bodied and everything. I looked at that and I said, boy, that's special. I'm gonna do that in my family. So I started that in 1984 when Lindsay was born, obviously, and we've never looked back, Michael. So your form of recognition with your father that day in July in 1976 left a lasting impression on me, and it's a form of recognition that I use today. So thank you very much.
Oh my gosh. Well, we have to both thank my father, I suppose, for that. He began
Yes, we
that
do.
legacy. So,
And that man's name is Morton Melnik, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever get a chance to stop by in Decatur, Illinois, and say hi to him, he's still working at age 90. So is quite a character.
yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to attempt to follow in those particular footsteps, but well, I know you need to get scooting, my friend, but congratulations again on the Hall of Fame. It is a very, very accurate, well-deserved recognition of your skill set and a lot of fun and joy you brought to Decatur and people that got to watch you all those years, and in Miami and Baltimore and all those places too. So it's been a fun ride for me to see it, and it's nice to see that this is some recognition that is well deserved.
Tears in my eyes, ladies and gentlemen. Until we meet again, have a great week. Michael, thanks very much for your input. Look forward to talking about fun, the last remaining energy source next week, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned for that one. All right,
Let's do it. Go out and recognize somebody for something today. And thanks, Matthew. We'll talk soon.
Okay, brother. Thanks.
Take care. You bet.
Bye-bye.
We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. Hey, Will, we picked up another sponsor tonight.
All right, who is it?
Advanced Collision in Beltsville, Maryland. Serving cars, buses, fleets, RV recreational vehicles, and emergency vehicles. They upfit in the Washington, D.C. and the Baltimore areas. Advanced Collision LLC excels at providing paint, dent repair, and auto body work services for your automobile. They use the best products available today for your automobile, and they only use certified, skilled, highly trained technicians backed by state-of-the-art equipment on your repair. And for a couple months, the Jungle Cat and his family kept those techs in business. They offer custom paint and design, professional body work, and repair services for all types of cars, trucks, buses, and recreational vehicles. So if you have a vehicle that needs repaired, do what the Jungle Cat does. Call 301-595-9377 to schedule an appointment. Advanced Collision, your best bet when it comes to automotive repair. My first guest and only guest this week is Will Prichard, our producer, my co-host, my go-to guy. Anything and everything that you have heard this season has been because of him and his efforts. And I thought, I'm just going to tell you, we had something happen this weekend that was just incredible. Richie Palacios, a former Towson University baseball player, was called up to the major leagues, and we'll get into it just a little bit, but during Richie's first at-bat, he got a hit, which immediately will put him in the Hall of Fame, I think, as one of the players that has been successful their first major league at-bat and, recorded a hit. I think there's a long list of people, and pretty special. You only get an opportunity to do that once, and he was very successful and got it done. In fact, he was 2 for 2. He did it that way, and it made Will kind of reflect on this particular season regarding who we have spoken with and who we've talked to and how interesting it has been. And I said, you know what? I'd like to get your thoughts on this year's events so far and kind of go from there. So before we do that, though, Will, tell us a little bit about what it is. What's your end goal here at Towson? In other words, you're doing this, but where do you see yourself after graduation?
Well, the eventual goal for me is to do play-by-play, hopefully at a major league level. I would love to do that for baseball. But for right after graduation, I mean, that comes with time. There's a large bit of experience that you need to get into that, and it's really hard for just, starting out to find that break in. It's all about timing, and of course when I graduate, it's not necessarily going to be baseball season, being it December, but that is when a lot of the opportunities open up as you're getting ready for spring training, you're getting ready for the start of the 2023 season. So possibly that way, I mean, I might be able to, even if I start out doing play-by-play at like a small college or even at the minor league level, I would love to do that to start out with, but end goal would definitely be major league play-by-play.
Interesting. And you feel like your education here at Towson is preparing you for that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's always opportunities to do whatever you want to do. For me, I've been able to take broadcast performance, sportscasting, both of which I'm currently in now. In the fall, I'm doing a radio station operations class, electronic media news production, everything like that all prepares you for that, because even when you're doing play-by-play, there's still a bit of an on-the-spot news aspect to it. And a lot of these play-by-play guys, they also do sports writing let's just throw the Orioles broadcast team out there, for example. They all have what they do on the radio, what they do for Masson, depending on which one you're listening to. And then they also either tend to write or they do other radio shows or other forms of writing and whatnot. But it's all about what you decide to do. You can structure your courses around what your end goal is. And that's one of the things that I do like about this school, is that you can structure everything like that.
I noticed that as we continue down this path and social media becomes more and more of a vehicle for recruiting, we're continuing to receive video clips of people in the transfer portal, junior college players, just about, I mean, even high school players that have got unbelievable video production companies working their games. There's always somebody on there, Will, that's either commentating or giving color or all of the above. And I would say that bodes well for you. Would you agree?
Definitely. I mean, the amount of opportunities that are out there, there are quite a bit. There's a website, the Sportscasters Talent Agency of America, that actually posts all of like the sportscasting job opportunities, and it's not just limited to baseball. There's baseball, football, hockey, basketball, all of that's on there. And I got showed that earlier this season when we had a guest come in to my sportscasting class, and there were actually 2 openings for the MLB for broadcasting on that site when I was looking through it. One was for New York baseball coverage, covering both the Mets and the Yankees, and one was an internship covering the Tampa Bay Rays. Of course, they're all in person, and still being in college, I can't necessarily do those at the moment, but just even knowing that that's out there and that's something that I can look forward to upon graduation, and that I do have a way to find these opportunities, it's great to know that it's out there.
Interesting. And while we were talking, I thought of those that I know in the broadcast industry, and I'll tell you a quick story about a pretty good friend of mine. We haven't spoken in a long time. We haven't spoken since 2013, just because our paths haven't crossed. He went into retirement, and now it looks like he's back. But when I played AA baseball, well, back in Charlotte, North Carolina, back in 1982 and 83, I befriended our, you had to be more than, you had to be a jack of all trades. Tony Schiavone was our play-by-play radio commentator, and he traveled with us. He was also the director of sales and marketing for the Charlotte O's, and depending on the night, he might have been the grounds crew. So quite the character. And I remember being on the disabled list once or twice, and we had struck up a chord, and long story short, I was in the booth with him doing his color, and in our downtime, I said, where do you see yourself? What's the end goal here for you? And he said, nothing to it. He goes, I'm going to be a play-by-play or a color guy for the Cincinnati Reds. And I was like, wow, man, that's just phenomenal. But as luck would turn out, I decided to stay in Charlotte, so I became a member of the front office staff during the down season, and totally because my elbow was recuperating. I'd had surgery in October. I got to know those guys pretty good, and long story short, we did a couple goofy commercials for Francis Crockett's brothers, and Francis Crockett's brothers were huge into wrestling back then, and slowly but surely, and we were laughing because I did a one-line gig and he did the whole bill. I mean, he did what was happening, this tag team match between Ric Flair and God knows whoever else, and then my line was something like, Charlotte Coliseum, 7:30, May 2nd, be there, and that was it. And when we're all said and done, I'm walking away with $50. He's walking away with about 500, and I was like, going, "This is crazy, man! I can't believe we just made money for doing something like that." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll never get into wrestling. It's just not going to happen for me. I'm a baseball guy, always have been, always will be." And boom, now he's in the Hall of Fame of professional wrestling for being the MC, outside of Michael Buffer. He is the man for WWE, or forgive me, I don't know the wrestling federations like I should. But Tony was the man, and went on to fame and stardom and riches and God knows everything else. Do you see yourself, just going down the communication highway and wherever it takes you, or are you that guy that says, nope, I'm sticking with baseball and that's it, that's the end all be all?
Well, personally, I mean, I would love to stick with baseball, but if the opportunity's there, I feel like it would be foolish not to explore it. I mean, say, I don't know, just throwing out say the Ravens, for example, Baltimore Ravens have an opportunity for football play-by-play. If I said I am only going to do baseball and this is like my way into the field and I didn't take that opportunity, within a year, I'd be kicking myself for not taking it.
Right.
Because it's all about the experience. Learning a sport to be able to do the play-by-play for it takes time, but once you know a sport, even if you do a different sport, it is still difficult to switch back and forth, but it's not impossible. And that's one of the things that I was able to do in my sportscasting class. We did basketball play-by-play and then immediately switched over to football play-by-play a week later. Two vastly different sports. But I will say, when I did the play-by-play for each one of those, it wasn't necessarily as difficult as I thought it would be. And I'm not a person who's big into necessarily either one of the sports, but I was able to understand it and follow along and keep up with it. And these were both, we did them off of video footage that was shot here at Towson. It was a football game, Towson and Bucknell, 2019, I want to say. And we also did Towson men's basketball, 2017, 2019, something like that. But no matter what the sport is, if there's an opportunity there, even if it means, if it just fits with what I'm doing in life at that moment, like if it means I get to stay in the area I'm in, I'll do it. If it means that, I get a huge pay raise or get to move somewhere exciting that I've always wanted to go, then why not?
There you go. And I can tell you that thing about pay raise. You're in a sport called baseball, and a friend of mine told me a long time ago, he goes, welcome to the sport of pagans, because he goes, you need to take the sworn oath of poverty. And I'm like, oh, perfect. That's just what we need. But, it's good to hear that you love the game. Well, let's get into a little bit about what we've done this year. You have been part of unbelievable number of coaches and alumni, and you made the comment that it was really neat for you to have interviewed Richie and then watch him do what he did. Tell us a little bit about what you thought, what you saw.
So, first of all, when we interviewed Richie, that was one of the coolest things. I mean, growing up, I've never been able to know many athletes in general. I was never the athletic kid. I was the kid that took like one throw or one swing and, well, something was broken. But to be able to sit in on that interview with Richie, that was just one of the coolest things. I mean, I've gone to minor league games. I've gone to, I want to say 2, 3, Aberdeen games, just because they're, closest minor league affiliate to us here. But to be able to actually sit down with someone who is playing in that system, that's just incredible to me. Then fast forward to Richie's debut on Monday, and I'm sitting there staying up, despite having class in the morning, which I still did fine. It was okay. But staying up and watching Richie play, that was just one of the coolest things. I was able to go, I interviewed that guy. I was able to sit in on that. That was one of the most exciting feelings that I've ever had. And I hope that I can keep that feeling whenever I do interviews like this. And when I move on from Towson, which, saying that, I mean, puts it into perspective, I only have a couple more months left until I graduate. So I hope I can carry that on, not just through baseball, but anything I do, whether it be for a news report that I've done for a course or for, this podcast, anything. It was just one of the most awe-inspiring feelings, really.
That's pretty cool. And obviously, none of our listeners can see his face and his facial expressions, and I'll try to be the lens to what I'm witnessing here, because you're seeing just an incredible amount of humility come out of him, and it warms my heart. Sometimes I take it for granted who I hobnob with and who I see and who I get an opportunity to communicate with, and where they have, come in contact with me throughout the course of my life. And not that I ever take it for granted, but sometimes, like, I can call Richie on a whim and say, hey, good luck, and what's going on, what's been your toughest, and he'll answer the phone. Just like I can call Lance Lynn and Brian Snitker and God knows how many other guys that are in the big leagues. I had a University of Richmond guy get called up to the big leagues this weekend, Vinny Capra. So I told him, I said, when you get to Cleveland, make sure you reach out to Richie, because he's up now too. And he's like, oh, that's great. He goes, we'll go out as Tyner's boys. And I'm like, whatever, it's incredible. I guess it means I've been around for a long time, but it's so cool when we have done some shows this past spring, and I would go, hey, what do you think? And Will would go, wow, that was really something. That guy really opened up. And one in particular, I think, was Chad Holbrook. I didn't really know Chad at all, and we're talking about a Division I powerhouse, University of South Carolina, and he had coached his resume was incredible, and one of his best friends, Ray Tanner, was the AD, and I'm sure it was tough for Ray to let Chad go, and then Chad lands at College of Charleston, and they're running away with the CAA this year. Nobody can slow them down. They're 16-2, and it's ridiculous. They're playing so well, and this is his 5th year there, so they're moving in the right direction. And obviously, when we communicated with him, he was telling us what his life was like and everything else. And you remember that one, Will?
I do, and beyond just Chad Holbrook, but everyone we've interviewed. I mean, my personal favorite interview was, other than Richie, of course, Sean Stifler. Just hearing the story of loss and being able to come back and take over a program out of loss like that and build it up to the program that it is today is just incredible to do. And it's not something that can be done easily. And just even hearing about that, I would have never known it had we not done that interview.
It's interesting. We'll get to Sean in just a second, but the reason why I picked Chad was, one, it was an incredible interview, but of all the people in my contact list, guess who texted me immediately following Richie Palacios' first hit in the big leagues?
Chad Holbrook.
Chad Holbrook. He was the first guy to go, isn't that cool? And I was just like, because it was a West Coast game, and although he stayed up for it, I didn't make it past the second AB. So I guilty as charged. I tried, but I couldn't do it. To receive that text from Chad was just, it was, again, there's another heartwarming feeling for me, because we're all in this together, although we compete against each other, and that's all we really are trying to do, is try to get somebody prepared for professional baseball, if that's their dream, and or try to get them prepared for an internship or a job or something like that, if that's their dream. And it's funny, Will, I was talking to a gentleman, I'm going to leave anonymous, that came to the Northeastern game yesterday, and I kind of apologized to our guys because it was pregame, and I said, look, he owns one of the largest nonprofit organizations dealing with people, special people that have special stories, and he tries to get them internships all over the country, all over the world if he can. He's been that successful in his business world, and he reached out to me and said, I'd like to meet you and like to talk to you at the Northeastern game, because if there's anything I can ever do for you down the road, I'd like to have one or two of your players. And I was like, God, that's fantastic. So he was telling me about a young lady from Kenya who had, been forced to try and educate herself under a candlelight and the whole 9 yards. And somehow a missionary found her, took her to Canada, got her in school in Canada, and she, thrived in education. She ended up at Harvard in Boston, and the next thing you know, now she's working for BlackRock.
Wow.
And he called BlackRock and said, put up or shut up. You talk a good game. Now let's see what your diversity and inclusion actually looks like. And by God, they took her, gave her an internship, and now she's working for him. And stories like that, are just incredible. So for me to have an opportunity to talk to that gentleman about, my guys, and he goes, but it's got to be a unique story. And I'm like, I'm sure I will run across one sooner or later, and if and when I'll make that phone call. But sports in general, dude, have opened so many doors for me. Hopefully they'll continue to open some doors for you. The Sean Stifler interview was incredible. I mean, Mike Glavin's interview, the head coach at Northeastern, was incredible. Eric Frank's interview was great. The one we just had. Listen to Brady Policelli talk about his career was cool. Derek Hasselhoff, our very first interview in his life and times in the minor leagues, and being one night away from the call up in Terrier UCL in a bullpen session. I mean, how devastating was that? But he's seemed to bounce back relatively nicely. And I mean, it goes without saying, all these people that we've had a chance to talk with. Dan Simon with IMG, how cool was that? I mean, up and down the seaboard, and Shane Justice, I thought that was a good interview. Scotty Hargis, from his poolside in Florida. All those guys have left a serious mark on us this spring. And maybe we're a little preemptive here by having this interview today, but I don't want it to go unnoticed. We really thank each and every one of our guests.
We do.
For having come on and shared their stories with us, because it's really been just an incredible journey for Will and I to get together and do something like that. Any closing thoughts, Will?
Well, I just want to say, I mean, these stories that our guests have said, whether you're interested in it or not, I would highly advise listening to them. They're still stored, even if one day, the hosting site ends up going down or whatnot, they will all still be on YouTube. I still have all these files. Every last one of them has been saved, and it's been backed up in about 4 places. So no matter what happens, these interviews will stay out for as long as those platforms exist. So even if you don't have time now, if you have time over the summer, have time over the fall, maybe even over winter, if you have the time, go back and listen to at least one interview.
Well, I don't think I could have said it any better myself. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for giving us your ear this week. We'll be back with you in just a second, but right now, a little word from our sponsor. Hey, well, it looks like we've got a new sponsor, and the Jungle Cat would like to thank the fine team at Capital Seaboard, the top distributor of fresh produce and seafood in the Mid-Atlantic region. Capital services the top chefs in restaurants, hotels, caterers, and kitchens from Philly to Richmond. They're a chef-driven, highest in quality company, proudly serving the region with over 90 vehicles delivering 6 days a week. And thanks very much for that sample of lump crab meat. Can't wait to dive into that after tonight's show. What do you think, Will? You ready to try some?
I'm ready.
Great. Well, thanks again to the people at Capital Seaboard for their fine and continued sponsorship. Now we're going to get into a little bit of a wrap-up on the week. So it's kind of a tough week for the Tigers. What do you got for me, Will?
Well, let's start off with UMBC. Supposed to be a Tuesday night game, but weather does not like to often cooperate in the Baltimore area. So the game got pushed to Wednesday. 12-3 loss, unfortunately. But the game itself, I mean, there was still a decent amount of, good things that came out of it. First off, let's talk about Jack McLaughlin for that game.
Jack had a heck of a game, and he's put together one of the most remarkable years of late here at Towson. I mean, if he continues on this path that he's on, he's going to hit over 325. He's going to have a handful of home runs, some clutch RBIs. He's going to have played. Made his first error this weekend at first base, and that was on a routine ground ball that he just, he kicked himself for. And but those things happen. He's just been, and rightfully so. He's put together a heck of a season because of the prep work that he did last summer. We challenged him to go home and get 15 to 20 more pounds on, and so he could swing with a little bit more girth. And by gosh, that's what he's done. And look at what it's done for him. The only downfall to the weight gain was that he had lost probably a half a step. And if he would have maintained even the speed that he had last year, which was, not record-breaking, but nonetheless pretty quick, he probably would have had 4 extra hits this weekend alone. So he's hitting the ball. He's doing a great job defensively. He's a leader in the clubhouse. Just a joy to be around, So, yeah, he had a good game against UMBC and followed it up with a pretty good game, pretty good series against Northeastern.
So one of the things that I've noticed, with the UMBC game, it wasn't so much necessarily a game of errors like we've occasionally seen in the past. There were a lot of hits from both teams. But in terms of scoring those runs, it was a lot, it was pretty difficult.
Interesting evening. Just an interesting atmosphere down there as well. The wind was blowing out, then it shifted, kind of blew across, then it shifted, kind of blew in, then it blew back out. It was, depending on when you were hitting, dictated what might happen. And we're going to throw some young arms and continue to try and develop. And then, if we have to mix in some older arms, we do, obviously. And we've given up a lot of hits. We just don't seem to be able to locate anything with consistency. When we do, we are very, very effective, and when we don't, we are not. And it's unfortunate. It really is. You get to see the tale of two cities, basically. When we're on, we're tough, and when we're not very good. So we took UMBC and beat them here 5-1, turned right around and handed it back to them. And I would have thought that the way we beat Hofstra on Sunday, that would have been the catalyst to get us up, get us rolling, wheels up and take off, and here we go. But maybe it's not going to happen this year. Don't know. I'm going to keep plugging. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to try and, motivate and rock and roll. But I need some people to do the same thing. Negative nannies, I don't have time for. We got to keep rolling. This thing ain't over yet. When it's over, it's over. And until then, we got to keep playing. So hopefully some guys will try to hone their skills just a little bit, sharpen their axes, and see if we can't end on a good note.
Let's move on from UMBC to the series against Northeastern.
Okay.
Northeastern, normally a really tough team in the conference overall. Let's start out with Friday night.
Sure.
So 6 hits overall. Let's actually, let's pivot away from the hits for a second. Towson pitching. Let's talk about pitching for Friday night.
Okay.
So Towson pitching had 6 runs allowed, just 4 earned. Let's talk about pitching Friday night compared to how it's been in previous games.
Well, if you look at the way we started that game, first and foremost, you pivoted away from hitting. I'm going to pivot back to hitting for just a second. I'm going to mention two words, Scotty and Yost. And what you don't understand, those two words are the last names of the two pitchers that we faced that day. And Mr. Scotty's now 8-2 in a season where they have swept North Carolina State, beat Clemson 2 out of 3. They're 22 and 21. Yeah, they've lost some games, but they've lost some midweeks. And midweek games, nobody gets to see their three-headed monster, of Scotty, Slitter, and Keene. And people need to understand that's a no-joke threesome. Wyatt Scotty last year was their Sunday guy. All he's done is turn into their Friday guy. So now you're 92 to 95 with sinks, slide, and change of pace. Not bad. Then you throw Eric Yost in there. He's 95 to 98. So he's bringing it. And it's like taking a knife to a gunfight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. For us to have accomplished anything offensively against those guys, I'm going to tip my cap. And when the game was 4-2, we had a shot. We thought we had a shot. And I think they did too. But we were unable to capitalize. We were unable to go back out there and hang a bagel, throw a zero up to get us back in the top of the ninth and see if we couldn't continue that momentum. And that's been our Achilles heel all year. We'll score, go out and give some runs. It's so important that when your team scores runs, if you are behind, that the next half inning has got to be a shutdown inning. And we just didn't have it that day, unfortunately. And Jake Pekalunas has been phenomenal for us throughout the course of his career. Nobody would have told me that after we did what we did in the top of the eighth against Eric Yost that he'd have gone out there and walked two. So that just tough. It is. It's just kind of hard to. He gave up an infield hit, and then another capper, and then, so we're, it's tough. It's just been one of those days where we're just a tick off, man, and we need some help. And I see in my notes now he didn't walk two. We gave up an infield hit, and then a fly ball to right, and then a base hit that was capped, and then then he struck out a guy, and then D'Lo came in and gave up a hit and 2 runs scored, and that's the tail of that bottom of the eighth. So yeah, it's been one of those kind of years, and Pecco did a pretty good job. As we mentioned, Jack McLaughlin started off that inning with his first error of the year, and then a run and hit where we were going to cover the bag, and the next thing you know, the ball's up the middle. Then we wild pitch a guy over. Then another infield hit, run scores. Then they soft contact, base hit to right, another run scores, and now we're down 2-0. Well, give Scotty a 2-0 lead with a 1.1 ERA. You do the math, babe.
Yep.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough. So for us to come back and actually put a couple on the board that night, I thought was okay. Yeah, just okay. So we'll see what we can do.
And transitioning from that, going off Friday into Saturday, holding Northeastern to 6 runs each day, that's quite impressive. Given the Northeastern pitching. Going into Saturday, do you want to talk about Saturday for a little bit?
Yeah, I got my Fridays and Saturdays mixed up. I was so into Pekalunas on Saturday, so forgive me. Saturday was the day when Peck, actually walked 2 in the bottom of the eighth and gave up a couple runs, and that was off of, what should have been billed as the marquee matchup of the conference this year with Cam Schlittler and Nick Janowitz almost lived up to its billing. Jano threw a heck of a game on Saturday, and by rights, we would have been neat for us to have scored some runs, and then we finally did in the bottom of the or the top of the eighth to get a couple runs in, and then we faced Balboni in the ninth, and that was kind of a challenge for us, So we it was. They're good. Don't let the record stand for the potential, because if they play like they played against us, and this was one of the better weekends of pitching that we did, with the exception of Sunday. The first two games we were pretty competitive, and they're not the killers that they were last year offensively, but my goodness, they've still got some guys that can hit, and they put the ball in play. And the minute you make any mistake, field a mistake, you walk somebody, they're gonna go into their pressure offense, and then you have to perform defensively, and you have really got to be able to, to execute whatever play that there is. And on Sunday we were unable to do that. On Friday and Saturday we were, and that's why they scored 6 runs instead of 16. But timely hits. I've said to our guys all year that 3 hits in a row normally does something pretty cool. It normally produces a run or 2 or 3, or it gives you a chance, or a walk, or an error in 2 hits, or 2 hits and an error, or can't be 2 hits and a walk. It's got to be 2 hits and a ball in play. So yesterday we had some big hits. 5 doubles and a triple, and we get beat 16-4. That's hard to do, Yeah. So it's been one of those kinds of years, and so yeah, keep going.
And I do want to reiterate a point you said: don't let the record fool you. And that's something that goes beyond just Towson. That goes through all levels of sports, every sport. The team with the best record does not necessarily mean they're going to win every game. It does not necessarily mean they're going to be the champion either. And most recently, take last year's World Series, for example. Look at the Braves. They had, 86 wins going into the postseason?
Yeah.
And took down the 104, 105 win LA Dodgers. That's not something that's easy to do. And yes, there are, bad games here or there. Things happen. Life happens. Errors happen. Despite trying to stop them, sometimes it will just get away from you. And it's not saying that there's no going back from that. But it's tough. And we'll carry that into, again, talking about Sunday. Northeastern had 17 hits on Sunday.
Yeah, and it fell apart for us in an inning where, we and normally I take notes on every game, and on that particular game, it was really bad because the wheels fell off. We had brought Cam in, who again had done just a phenomenal job of relief throughout the course of the year. And if there's one thing that I think he's effective at is pitcher's fielding. And he fielded a bunt, couldn't get out of his glove, then overthrew the catcher, run scores on a safety, they bunt again. He throws wide at first. The next thing you know, the snowball fight is on, and they've scored 2 more runs, and it just got away from us on that particular play, because it was essentially 2-2, or 3-2 when Cam came in, and we were trying to get everything calmed down. And that's what he has been for us. His whole MO is to come in and put the fire out. Well, he got what he wanted. We just didn't execute. and then we got what we wanted, and then we didn't execute. And you know, when you make repeated errors from the mound, it's normally going to open Pandora's box.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, because you're adding freebies, and it's just, you know, and if you look at the first 2 days, the freebies were not out of too much whack. Northeastern had, I think, 17 and 13 freebies. We had 5 and 3. You know, so that kind of gives you an idea of how they play defense. So they did the execution part of what it is that I'm talking about, where we didn't. If you look at Friday, they had 4 infield hits on that slow turf of theirs that it took us a while to get used to. And you know, I know what you're saying. Hey, take more ground balls. Well, you only have a certain amount of time on their turf to take ground balls, and we didn't get to practice on that turf Thursday because they don't have lights. We left at 9 a.m. We were supposed to get there at 5. We got there at 7. You know, so yeah, it hurts. So bingo, we're behind the 8 ball as it is, but infield hit after infield hit, and then big triple. Next thing you know, give up a couple runs. You know, so it's been a collection. It has. And is Northeastern beatable? Yeah, but to beat that pitching, you've got to match it. You got to match it, and that's the tough part. And I think we did as good of a job as we could in trying to match it. Things just got away after Cam, and you know, it's certainly not all Cam's fault. That's not what I'm saying. It just, you know, we count on him, you know, to come in and put the fire out, not to throw another log on it and kind of go from there. So, and then after that, it was, you know, there's guys that travel with us all year, and in a game like that, they deserve to play. So, I'm gonna get them in that game and let them get some experience as well. So,
and this week coming up, George Mason on Tuesday, Coppin State Wednesday, and then JMU Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Long week,
but you know, this is what we signed up for. So 2 winnable games. George Mason, tough at home, but still winnable. And then you know, it's interesting to see exactly what we can do against Coppin State. You know, they're picked to win their conference. So it's going to be an interesting week. And then we'll be on the road, or we'll be hosting James Madison here and see what we can do. So 4 home games out of 5. This will be a good one for the Tigers to get back on track.
Definitely. And again, if you want to see any of these games, you know, away at George Mason Tuesday, but Wednesday at 3 at Sherholtz, Friday at 3, Saturday at 1, and Sunday at 1.
Come on down, John B. Sherholtz. That's the place to be, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you.
Well, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today, and it's going to be me doing the closing. So on behalf of Coach Tyner and myself, we'd like to thank Michael Melnik once again, as always, for his wonderful discussion, with today's being on the topic of recognition. And we have one more energy source to cover next week. So definitely come back for that. And we've got a long week of Towson baseball ahead. So definitely come out and see a game if you can, or watch them on Flow Sports. Remember, if you want to see change, be the change you want to see in the world today. Thank you for listening, everyone. We couldn't be doing this without you. And remember, if you want to get updates as soon as a new episode comes out, like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite streaming platform. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, and Podbean. So please, if you want to get notified as soon as the new episodes come out, please follow us that way. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Do you have any questions you wish for us to discuss? Anything you want to talk about? Feel free to email us at mtyner@towson.edu. That's mtyner@towson.edu.
or wprich1@students.towson.edu. That's WPRICH1@students.towson.edu.